Hello everybody, and welcome. My name is The Shy Hat, and it is December 11th, 2023. It is a Monday, so welcome back to the grind, everybody. And we're going to be doing TryHackMe's Advent of Cyber Day 11 challenge today. So before we do that, let me drop a link in the chat for everybody who wants to join in. So if you don't know about this challenge, it's a so this is an event being hosted by the TryHackMe education platform, and every day of December up until December 24th, there's going to be a new beginner-friendly cybersecurity challenge that everybody can participate in, and it's a way for everybody to learn beginner cybersecurity skills in a beginner-friendly and fun way. So now that I have my mouse highlighter up, let's begin the challenge. Okay, so today is day 11, and we're dealing with Active Directory today. So the first thing we want to do is we want to click on this green Start Machine button, and that's going to start up the virtual machine for the Active Directory server that we're going to be interacting with. So click on that, and that's going to create a split view inside the browser pane. We just need to wait for this machine to initialize, and then we can get going. But while we're waiting, we can go over what we're going to be learning today. So what are our learning objectives for today? We're going to understand Active Directory. We're going to be introduced to Windows Hello for Business. We're going to get prerequisites for exploiting generic write privilege, which is a type of privilege that Active Directory users can have. We're going to figure out how the shadow credentials attack works, and we're going to learn how to exploit the vulnerability. Okay, so what do we need to do today? Do we need to start a VM today? Yes. Is there split screen available? Yes. And do we need to start the attack box today? Yes, we need to do all these things. We started the first one. I guess while we're at it, we can start the attack box as well. And we can do that by clicking on the Start Attack Box button over here on the web page. So just click on that. And then we go back down to our task for day 11 over here. All right, so let's learn a little bit about Active Directory. So Active Directory is a system mainly used by businesses in Windows environments. It's a centralized authentication system. The domain controller is at the heart of AD and typically manages data storage, authentication, and authorization within a domain. You can think of AD as a digital database containing objects like users, groups, and computers, each with specific attributes and permissions. Ideally, it applies the principle of least privilege and uses a hierarchical approach to managing roles and giving authenticated users access to all non-sensitive data throughout the system. For this reason, assigning permissions to users must be approached cautiously, as it can potentially compromise the entire Active Directory. We'll delve into this in an upcoming exploitation section. So you can see here that we have different branches of Active Directory. So we've got so each Active Directory server has its own computers, users, and groups, and it all branches out from there, and they all network together. So think passwords are hard to remember. Say hello to Windows Hello for Business. Okay, so WHFB. So Microsoft introduced Windows Hello for Business as a modern and secure way to replace conventional password-based authentication. Instead of relying on traditional passwords, WHFB uses cryptographic keys for user verification. Users on the Active Directory domain can access the AD using a PIN or biometrics connected to a pair of cryptographic keys, public and private. Those keys help to prove that the identity of the entity to which they belong. The MSDS key credential link is an attribute used by the domain controller to store the public key in Windows Hello for Business for enrolling a new user device, such as a computer. In short, each user object in the Active Directory database will have its public key stored in this unique attribute. All right, so we see that our attack box has finished initializing. We're going to put these virtual machines in their own Windows tab by doing this action right here, which is View in Full Screen. So we can click on this button, View in Full Screen, and that's going to put our attack box here in its own browser tab. Okay, so I'm going to click into this, hit enter to close out this terminal window, and then I'm going to go back to the original TryHackMe webpage. All right, so, and that means we can exit the, well, we're not going to exit the split view yet. We're going to go to this other virtual machine that we need to interact with today. And this one is the Shadow Credentials machine. So I access that by clicking on this button right here. And we need to put this one in its own browser tab as well. And we can do that with the same button, View in Full Screen, so we can click on that. Okay, so that's all well and good. And then we can go back to the TryHackMe webpage. And then we're going to close this out by hitting this button right here, Exit Split View. All right, so now we have a lot more screen real estate for looking at our web page. So, getting back to it, here's the procedure to store a new pair of certificates with WHFB. So, number one, we need the Trusted Platform Module (TPM) public-private key pair generation. The TPM creates a public-private key pair for the user's account when they enroll. It's crucial to remember that the private key never leaves the TPM and is never disclosed. Number two, client certificate request. The client initiates certificate request to receive a trustworthy certificate. The organization's certificate issuing authority receives the request and provides a valid certificate. And number three, key storage. The user's account, this particular attribute right here, is set. MSDS key credential link. Okay, so this is an attribute within the user properties over here, as seen in this user properties pane. So what's the authentication process? Number one, authorization. The domain controller decrypts the client's pre-authentication data using the raw public key stored in the MSDS key credential link attribute of the user's account. Number two, certificate generation. The certificate is created for the user by the domain controller and can be sent back to the client. And number three, authentication. After that, the client can log into the Active Directory domain using the certificate. So we can see here there's a diagram. So the client logs in, number one, and then authorization occurs. And then the certificate is generated and it is returned to the client. And then there is a certificate that they can use for further authentication. So please note that an attacker capable of overriding the MSDS key credential link of a specific vulnerable user can compromise it. All right, so how do we perform enumeration for this? Now is your chance to shine and ensure no security misconfigurations are lurking in the shadows. So let's get started by dusting off our magnifying glasses. Enumerating the Active Directory for vulnerable permissions is the first step to check if the current user has any write capabilities over another user on the AD. To achieve this, you can use the PowerShell script PowerView with the following command: find interesting domains AC1, ACL. This functionality will list all the abusive privileges, and it's then possible to filter for the current user, HR. we're specifically looking for any write privilege, since the goal is to overwrite the MSDS key credential link. From the vulnerable machine, we're going to launch PowerShell, which is pinned to the taskbar, and enter the following commands. Okay, so we need to launch PowerShell first. So we're going to go to the vulnerable Active Directory machine, and then we're going to double click on the PowerShell icon over here. Double click, and then we're going to see if we can make this a little bit bigger for us. Maybe I can do that inside of properties, and I can make the font bigger. So it's 14 right now. Let's try 20. Let's try a little bigger than that. Let's try 28. Okay, so that's yeah, I think that should be big enough. All right, so let's go back to the web page and see what commands we're going to be running. So we're going to go to the desktop directory. So right now we're working as the HR user. So we're going to go to their desktop directory with this command right here. We can copy that, and then we can Control V to paste it in and go to the directory. And then we're going to run PowerShell with the EP bypass. So this is going to bypass the default policy for arbitrary PowerShell script execution. So if we don't do this, we're not going to be able to run the PowerView script because it has a bunch of stuff that that Windows doesn't like. All right, so we're going to. Oh, that's the wrong command. I need to copy the other command. Okay. So number 2, copy that and then paste that. So now we've got the bypass in place, and now we can load in the PowerView script. So we load in the PowerView script using this. So copy that and then paste it. Okay, that's done. At this point, we can enumerate the privileges by running find interesting domain ACL, resolve GUIDs. Okay, so we're going to do that. Copy and paste. Okay, so this is taking a little bit, so we're going to go back to the web page and read about this. So as you may see, this command will return all users' privileges. Since we're specifically looking for the current user, HR, we need to filter it out using where object identity reference name equals HR. So we're interested in the current user, the vulnerable user, and the privilege assigned. We can filter that out by running select object, identity reference name, object DN, Active Directory rights. So these are all going to be appended to the original command to make a more concise command. You can launch this command right here to find the vulnerable permissions inside of for that specific user. So we can copy this and then go back to our machine. Okay, so it seems we're having some connection issues. Hopefully they resolve themselves sooner rather than later. Okay, so we're all good. So we can paste in. We can paste in the command that we just copied. Let's do that again. So we're going to copy this, and then we're going to paste this. And then we're going to run it. And this seems to be taking a bit to run, so we're going to go back to the web page and read about it. So as you can see from the previous output, the user HR has the generic write permission over the administrator object visible on the CN attribute. Okay, so later we can compromise the account with that privilege by updating the MSDS key credential link with a certificate. This vulnerability is known as the Shadows Credentials attack. The vulnerable user may not be the same as the administrator, so please note that down since you will use it in the exploitation section. Okay, so it's not going to be administrator here, but when we go to here, we see that the vulnerable user is instead this user right here, which is named Van Sprinkles. All right, so we need to remember this username instead of the administrator when we go forward when we're exploiting the vulnerability. Okay, so how do we perform exploitation on this particular vulnerability? So one helpful tool for abusing the vulnerable privilege is Whisker, a C# utility created by Elad Shamir. Using Whisker is straightforward. Once we have a vulnerable user, we can run the add command from Whisker to simulate the enrollment of a malicious device, updating the MSDS key credential link attribute. So this task can be accomplished by running the following command. So we can just run this command with Whisker, and we can add the target, but it's not administrator because that's not the user that we found. So we're going to have to substitute this with the user that we found. So we're going to copy this portion of the command, and then we're going to run the command, but we're going to add the target Van Sprinkles instead of administrator. Van Sprinkles. Okay, so we run the command. Okay, and we get all of this output right here. And let's go back to the web page to see what's going on. So the tool will conveniently provide the certificate necessary to authenticate the impersonation of the vulnerable user with a command ready to be launched using Rubius. So Whisper enables us to use a command using Rubius to perform the attack. The core idea behind the authentication in AD is using the Kerberos protocol, which provides tokens, which are called TGT, for each user. A TGT can be seen as a session token that avoids the credential prompt after user authentication. So Rubius is a C# toolset designed for direct Kerberos interaction and exploitation, and was developed by SpectreOps. And we're going to use a pass the hash attack. So you can continue the exploitation by asking for a TGT of the vulnerable user using the certificate generated in the previous command. Once we've obtained the certificate, you can acquire a valid TGT and impersonate the vulnerable user. Additionally, the NTLM hash of the user account can be displayed in the console output, which can be used for a pass the hash attack. You can continue the exploitation for asking for a TGT of the vulnerable user using the certificate generated in the previous command. To do so, copy and paste the output from the previous command. A detailed explanation of what the command is doing can be seen below. Alright, so we're going to make a request to obtain the TGT, and and as the user we want to impersonate for the TGT, and we're going to get the certificate generated to impersonate the target user, and we're going to get the password used for decoding the certificate since it's encrypted, and we're going to include the target domain, and this flag is going to retrieve the NTLM hash, which will be used in the next step. And the domain controller and the DC, this particular switch is going to be the domain controller that will generate the TGT. All right, so what we need to do is we need to go up here, and we need to copy all of this output right here. So go here, copy all of this, and go all the way down. And then copy that, Control C. And then we need to paste it in, Control V. Except at the very beginning of the command, we need to include a period and a backslash. Otherwise, it's not going to it's not going to run correctly. So we can run the command now after we've adjusted it a little bit. And then the Rubius program will go through its motions. While it's running, let's go back to the web page and see what's going on. Okay, so you can now execute a pass the hash attack using the NTLM cache obtained from the previous command. The attack involves leveraging the encrypted password stored in the domain controller rather than relying on the plaintext password. To do this, you can use EvilWinrm, a tool for remotely managing Windows systems abusing the Windows Remote Management WinRM protocol. So we can use this command right here, except we're going to substitute the user and the hash with the ones that we're generating. Okay, so here it says you have to use the -i parameter with this particular IP address. This is going to be different for you, probably. This is the one generated for me. The -u parameter with the user from the enumeration step, and the -H parameter with the hash of the user you got from the last row of the previous step, the NTLM hash. Okay, to do this, you can use EvilWinrm on your attack box. So what we need to do now is we need to go to the attack box tab and click allow, and we're going to need to open up a terminal. So we can open up a terminal using this shortcut right here. And then I'm going to make this larger so everybody can see it properly. Maybe a little smaller. Okay. All right, so we go back to the vulnerable Active Directory server. Okay, and we see that we have the NTLM. It retrieves the NTLM hash for us right here, and this is for the Van Sprinkles user. We're going to be using this in the EvilWinrm login attempt. So we can copy this, and actually, no, we're not going to copy it yet. We're going to go over here, and we're going to copy the EvilWinrm command right here. So we copy this, and then we go to the attack box, and then we paste in the command. So here it's got the correct IP address for my instance. Okay, remember that U is user, so we're going to substitute administrator for the user that we found, Van Sprinkles. And then the hash is going to be different as well, so we need to erase this. And then we need to go to the Active Directory machine, and then we need to copy the NTLM hash right here. Whoops. Okay, copy that, and then go back to the attack box, and then paste it in with Control-Shift-V. Remember that inside a terminal, a Linux terminal rather, you need to use Control-Shift-V and Control-Shift-C to copy and paste instead of the regular keyboard shortcuts. All right, so we can run this command. And we see that we're now logged in as the Van Sprinkles user. Okay, so EvilWinrm allows us to log in using the Windows RM remote, Windows Remote Management tool. Okay, so we're now logged into the Active Directory machine as Van Sprinkles from our attack box. All right, so if we type in the eponymous command, who am I? I am Van Sprinkles. All right, so back at the TryHackMe page, we come to our conclusion. So we've stumbled across a misconfiguration after all. In this scenario, an attacker could gain full access to our Active Directory, posing a severe threat to the entire Antarcticraft security system. As for our recommendations, we'll emphasize cybersecurity's golden rule, the principle of least privilege. By strictly adhering to this principle, we can limit access to only what's necessary for each user or system, signifying reduced risk of such a devastating compromise. In the chilly world of cybersecurity, less is often more. So let's go over what we did in today's task. So first of all, we used the first of all, we used PowerView to enumerate our users' privileges. So we were the HR user. And from that, we found that this user had the generic write privilege, which is a big no-no, because regular users should not have this privilege because it lets you write all sorts of stuff within the Active Directory environment. So to exploit it, we used the Whisker program we used the Whisker program with the Van Sprinkles user account. With the Van Sprinkles user account to overwrite the MSDS key credential link attribute of the administrator user. And then we used Rubius to obtain the NTLM hash of the Van Sprinkles user, which was the vulnerable user, and then we got the NTLM hash, and then we performed a pass the hash attack using the EvilWinrm tool. Okay, so what is the hash of the vulnerable user? So we can go back to our attack box and we can copy this value right here, which is the NTLM hash of the vulnerable user. Control-Shift-C to copy, and then paste it in. And what is the content of the flag.txt file on the administrator desktop? Okay, so for this question, we can go to our attack box where we're logged in as the Van Sprinkles user, and then we can go to the cd users /administrator /desktop. Okay, and if we dir to see what's in the directory, we can see that there's a flag file in here. And we can read the flag file with the type command, type flag.txt. And the flag is this flag right here. We can highlight it, and then we can copy it with Control-Shift-C. We can go back to the TryHackMe webpage and paste it in. All right, so that is the correct flag, and the other questions for this task, we can just click on them to complete them. All right, well, that is the end of today's task. I hope you learned some important stuff about Active Directory and how to look up people's privileges using tools like PowerView, and how to get NTLM hashes of vulnerable users using Rubius. All right, so that's it for today's challenge. We'll be back tomorrow with day 12 of TryHackMe's Christmas Advent of Cyber event. But this was the Shy Hat. I hope you had a lot of fun, and I hope you learned something. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, we will see you next time.